Number 10. Ezekiel Sims. Ezekiel Sims is also referred to as Old Man Spider-Man. In his reality, he was the one to take up the Spider-Man mantle after Peter Parker was killed by Morlun. Ezekiel hails from Earth 4 and is an alternate reality version of the 616 Ezekiel Sims. The Ezekiel Sims of Earth 616 was the one who locked away Cindy Moon, aka Silk, in order to protect her from Morlun, his enemy, who he knew was tracking Cindy. Old Man Spider-Man Ezekiel Sims made his first appearance in the Edge of the Spider-Verse series in issue number 5. He also happens to have a really cool looking suit. He was created by Gerard Way and Jake Wyatt. Number 9. Spider-Woman. Spider-Woman is Jessica Drew, or at least she is one of the Spider-Women. More importantly, she is the one that we'll be talking about for this point on this list. Jessica Drew is more removed from the world of Peter Parker Spider-Man, having her own unique origin story that doesn't mimic the tried and true spider bite, loss of Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility, yada yada yada. Instead, Jessica Drew was experimented on by her father and the High Evolutionary, likely in disguise. Possibly in disguise. Jessica spent much of her early years in stasis, and when she awoke she was a fully grown young adult. Jessica ended up in the hands of Hydra, but would eventually break away from her more villainous origins and end up as the hero that we've come to know as Spider-Woman, who has also had a career as a successful sleuth and PI. Jessica Drew made her first appearance in Marvel Spotlight issue number 32 back in the 70s, and was created by Archie Goodwin, Sal Buscema, Jim Mooney, and Marie Severin. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are as excited for Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 as we are, and you want more lists about it, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up, because I want to tell you more about what I want for this movie and what I want for all of us. Number 8. Lady Spider. Lady Spider is an alternate I'm particularly fond of. I just love her overall design and the fact that she is from the turn of the century. Lady Spider is Maybelle Riley. Her father was an inventor and inspired May to become an inventor herself and ultimately a hero. She used parts he had in his garage after he passed away to build her own spider suit and her own web shooters and 4 mechanical arms, which also granted her the ability to wall crawl. While Maybelle doesn't have any superpowers, she is considered to be quite intelligent and resourceful. And honestly, she doesn't need powers to be a cool inventor Spidey alternate. After all, inventing is a hugely important skill of Spider-Man's too that often gets overlooked or forgotten. Lady Spider first appeared in Spider-Verse issue number 1 and was created by Robbie Thompson and Dennis Madrid. Number 7. Spider-Girl. For this Spider-Girl, we're talking about Anya Corazon. She is an alternate Spider-Folk from Earth 616. Anya herself is another spider totem who gets her powers from a more mystical source known as the Spider Society, where she was granted a spider tattoo that basically gave her spider-like powers. At least, that's how it seemed initially. Or you could look at it like she got spider-like powers and then she got the tattoo from those. In truth, the Spider Society had only unlocked Anya's true potential though, allowing her to tap into and access her natural powers, which were simply lying dormant. Now, however, Anya no longer possesses these same powers, instead having powers that mimic Spider-Man following the events of Spider Island. Anya, or Aranya as she is also referred to, made her first appearance in the 2004 Amazing Fantasy series in issue number 1. She was created by Fiona Avery and Mark Brooks. Number 6. Spider-Man 2099. Of course, one we all expect to see based on their appearance in the promotional material and the post-credits scene. However, that doesn't mean that fans everywhere aren't hyped and of course wanting this to happen, and if you're one of those folks, congrats, because it's definitely going to be a thing. Miguel O'Hara is Spider-Man 2099. He first made his appearance in Amazing Spider-Man issue 365, where a preview was featured for the Spider-Man 2099 series. He is from the alternate future year of 2099 from the alternate Earth of 928. Here Miguel became Spider-Man after trying out his own experimental and dangerous procedure. Despite the procedure being tampered with, it surprisingly worked and Miguel received spider-like powers and abilities, making him the Spider-Man of the future. Number 5. Spider-Punk. One of my favorite alternate Spideys out there has always been Hobart Brown. Brown is the Spider-Man of Earth 138. He made his first appearance in the Amazing Spider-Man Spider-Verse story in issue number 10 of the 2014 ASM series. Hobby was created by Dan Slott and Olivier Capoil and is known for his punk rock attitude. He fights his universe's version of Venom, V-E-N-O-M, with an army of amps. Hobby Brown is also another version of 616 Hobby Brown, who currently goes by the codename Hornet and works as a hero. But originally, this Hobby from Earth 616 was the first version of the short-lived villain Prowler, making his first appearance in the comics back in the late 60s. I know, now when we think Prowler we all think Aaron Davis, but actually, Hobby Brown, original Prowler. Number 4. Spider-Man. Spider-Man is another awesome alternate of Spider-Man and of Aunt May. She first made her appearance in the original What If series in issue number 23, where we answered the question, what if Aunt May had been bitten by that radioactive spider instead? This all happens as a result of Peter leaving his lunch at home on the day when he attended the science demonstration with his class. Aunt May was the one who ran into the radioactive spider and was bit by it. Initially, Aunt May intended to use her powers powers to perform stunts in order to earn money to support her family. However, the villain Leapfrog showed up, prompting May to fight against him and defeat him, turning her into a hero from that point on. Spider-Man was created by Steve Skeets and Alan Kupperberg. Since appearing in What If, she's made several other appearances throughout the Spidey comics and Marvel multiverse. Spider-Man hails from the alternate reality of Earth 3123, and in that reality, Uncle Ben's still alive! Number 3. Spider-Man India, or just Spider-Man as he's known in his own reality. Pavitra Prabhakar is Spider-Man in the reality of 50101. Pavitra grew up poor in India, but due to his brilliant mind wins a scholarship and is able to move to Mumbai with his Aunt Maya and Uncle Bim. While there, he receives spider-like powers from a yogi who hopes Pavitra will use them to save the world from an ancient evil that threatens it. Pavitra loses his Uncle Bim as a result of him not choosing to use his powers to help a woman who is being attacked. His uncle does try to help and dies in the process. Pavitra first appeared in Spider-Man India in issue number 1 and was created by Jeevan Kang, Suresh Sitharman, and Sharad Devarajan. Number 2. Spider-Man Noir. While we did get to see Spider-Man Noir in the first film Into the Spider-Verse, where he was voiced by Nicolas Cage, I think that's just all the more reason that fans would love to see him return in this follow-up film. Nicolas Cage was the perfect casting for Spider-Man Noir, which made him an instant fan favorite among those who were introduced to the Spider-Verse via the film. In the comics, Spider-Man Noir is also considered a popular character. He hails from the Noir-verse of Earth 90214. Spider-Man Noir made his first appearance in the comics in Spider-Man Noir issue number 1 and was created by David Hine and Marko Djurjevic. Number 1. Spider-Woman. May Parker may be more well known by her former mantle of Spider-Girl, but she is currently all grown up and known as Spider-Woman in the comics. She is the daughter of Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson Parker from the reality of MC2. In this alternate universe, heroes were more prone to retiring, settling down, and having families. As such, Peter, in this reality, ends up having a daughter and a son with MJ. Mayday Parker, it turns out, and her brother both end up developing spider-like powers, and eventually May would become Spider-Girl and later Spider-Woman, following in her dad's footsteps. I think it would be especially cool to see this alternate from Earth 982 alongside another Spider-Man who is only just having kids or, you know, hasn't had them yet. Could be like fun and kinda awkward. May is a fan favorite, so this is one that I think a lot of us are hoping to see in the next film, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. Number 10. Spider-Man. Another one of my favorite alternate Spider-Men is Spider-Man. He is a version of Peter Parker who died and basically had his consciousness absorbed by experimental spiders. Kinda like DC's Swamp Thing. The spiders come together to give Peter Parker a form, but in reality there is really no more Peter Parker, or Spider-Man, as he died. These spiders merely think like Parker and have his memories. No longer is there a Spider-Man, and in his place instead there is Spiders-Man. This version of Peter Parker first appeared in Spider-Geddon issue number 3 and hails from the alternate reality of Earth 11580. Number 9. Spider-Carnage. There are a few different versions of Carnage Spider-Man, but the one I generally think of when I hear those names put together is the version from the Spider-Man animated series, Spider-Carnage. Spider-Carnage in the animated series is Peter Parker, who becomes filled with rage and grief after losing both his Uncle Ben and his Aunt May, and being made to doubt if he is the true Peter Parker or he is the clone after Ben Reilly comes into existence. It is these darker emotions that Carnage is attracted to when he enters the world via a portal. As Spider-Carnage, Peter's goal was to destroy the entirety of the multiverse before he was convinced by an alternate Uncle Ben to redeem himself, sacrificing himself when he could not remove the Carnage symbiote and ultimately ended up saving the day. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want perhaps even a part 3, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Takuya Yamashiro, aka Spiderman, or Japanese Spider-Man as he is sometimes known. Though in his home reality of Earth 51778, Yamashiro is simply known as Spider-Man. His origin, backstory, and overall fight against evil forces is quite a bit different than the 616 counterpart of this character. Takuya Yamashiro is a motocross racer who ends up getting the powers of Spider-Man from a dying alien who he stumbles across and who gives him an extract that grants him powers as well as the spider bracelet. This alien is also from Planet Spider, because that's what this universe is like. There's a planet spider, there's aliens, they have spider powers, get over it. He also has a giant mech robot he can pilot known as the Leopard Leopard on, and a spaceship called the Marveler, among other forms of transport, weapons, and equipment. Another fun fact about Yamashiro's Spider-Man is that while he has some of the strengths that belong to a spider, such as superhuman strength and his spider sense, he also has some of the spider's weaknesses, like an aversion to cold temperatures. Which is interesting, because you know, Spider-Man in 616 has all of like the pros usually of being a spider, but like never of the cons of spider-like abilities. Number 7. 90s animated series. A version of Spider-Man that many fans grew up with was the 90s animated series version. The 90s animated Spider-Man series ran for 5 seasons. Actually, I think it's the second longest series in comparison to X-Men for Marvel animated series. This is the same universe that Spider-Carnage hails from, and eventually saw Spider-Man team up with a ton of alternate reality versions of himself to try and take down Spider-Carnage. The awesome thing about the 90s series is there are lots of alternates within that world itself. Not only do we gain access to the main Spider-Man if we decided to go there, but also all the other Spider-Man alternates that exist in the animated multiverse. Also, the 90s was just a great time for Marvel animated series in general, so of course we want to see the 90s animated Spider-Man. Probably just as much as we're hyped about a series that's going to take us back to the golden days of animated X-Men. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about, X-Men 97. Let's go! Number 6. Scarlet Spider. Kane Parker hasn't been the only one to wear the Scarlet Spider mantle, but he's definitely one of my all-time favorites. Kane Parker was a failed creation of a Peter Parker clone. He was defective, and his degradation was so severe that it also seemed to affect his sanity in a way as well. Kane also had a few unique abilities in his early days. His spider sense was kind of also precognitive, allowing him to kind of see into the future, but at the cost of his sanity, making him more and more insane every time he experienced a vision. Yeah, Kane had a lot of problems. I think that's why I like Kane, actually, because he had so many flaws, but also so many quirks. He also had the Mark of Kane, which allowed him to use the same microscopic hooks that allow Spider-Man to wall crawl to disfigure his victims. He could brand and burn the face or body of his victims with just the touch of his hand, leaving behind what others would refer to as the Mark of Kane. He's changed a lot since those early days, but I would love to see either a nod to his more modern iteration or even the original 90s version of this character. So moody, so much hair. Number 5. Golden Sponge Cake Spider-Man. Golden Sponge Cake Spider-Man fights basically with Hostess snacks. He comes from the reality of Earth 51914, which is the reality belonging to the Hostess snack ads that you used to see in comics. I love that these ads actually have their own alternate reality and their own alternate versions of heroes, and that even within the multiverse, they have their own world and their own canon. As such, this Spider-Man usually fought against his enemies with snacks, and he usually won. Sadly, he's currently dead in the comics, having been killed by Morlun while he was on his way to a date with his reality's MJ. But hey, that doesn't mean that he needs to be dead in the animated multiverse, right? I guess Morlun was like, I am not feeling those snacks. Hostess snacks do not appease me. I only can eat spider totems. Number 4. Spiderling. Anna May Parker, or Annie Parker, is the daughter of Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson Parker from Earth 18119, the Renew Your Vows reality. In this reality, Peter and MJ are still married and have little Annie. We get to see into this reality during the events of God Emperor Doom's Battle World, and in fact it became so popular that even after Battle World was gone and done, the Renew Your Vows series continued on, and Annie also appeared in a follow-up story that continued in the pages of the limited series Spider-Girls. Annie Parker goes by the name Spiderling, and like her father has spider-like powers and abilities. In fact, not just like her father, but also like her mother, because in the Renew Your Vows reality, MJ also becomes a superhero and crime fighter who goes by the name Spinneret, and is also obviously spider-themed. Number 3. Spider-Man 3, aka Andrew Garfield's version of Spider-Man from the Amazing Spider-Man Sony franchise. I know what you're thinking, how is this possible if Andrew's version of Peter is a live-action Spider-Man? How could this happen? Well, I believe that when we begin to crack open the multiverse, anything becomes possible, including this. I would really love to see Andrew Garfield's version of Peter Parker return again, if possible, when it comes to alternate Spider-Men who are out in the multiverse that I'd enjoy seeing more of on their own adventures. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man ranks high among them. You could call him the Amazing Spider-Man, or you could just call him Spider-Man 3, as he later is referred to. I'm hoping at this point people have seen Spider-Man No Way Home, but even then I tried to be a little bit aloof so that there are no spoilers. spoilers, really. Number 2. Captain Universe. That's right, there is an alternate reality where Spider-Man decided to keep the power of the Enigma Force. While in the main continuity of the comics, Earth 616, Peter only temporarily became Captain Universe. In the alternate reality of Earth 13, he actually keeps said powers and remains Captain Universe. Of course, he doesn't live forever. Despite how cosmically powerful Peter Parker is here on Earth 13, he still ends up defeated in the fight against the Inheritors. Captain Universe here ended up being overcome by Solus, the Inheritors' leader. While his power remained too great for the rest of the Inheritors to conquer and drain, Solus was more experienced and was able to handle such great power with ease, killing Captain Universe. Of course, in the animated universe, where there don't seem to be any Inheritors yet, he could still be alive and could still be well, if he exists there. Let him exist there, please. Number 1. MCU Miles Morales. One alternate I have been dying to see ever since the MCU started up their own Spider-Man film franchise is that of a live-action Miles Morales. His potential existence has been alluded to a few times in the MCU, but we still haven't managed to meet Miles there yet. If Across the Spider-Verse also wanted and was able to partner with the MCU creative team, perhaps we could see a live-action Miles show up there and potentially even make his way into the MCU canon and narrative. I don't know about you, but I would love a whole MCU franchise to be built all around Miles Morales' Spider-Man, and I think Across the Spider-Verse could be a great place to introduce Miles' live-action MCU counterpart. Also, then we get Miles and Miles. There's gotta be some alternate Miles out in the multiverse because Miles is also Spider-Man. Number 10. Earth 1610. Earth 1610 would be an interesting one to go to because would it be the same as Miles' universe or not? I think when we talk about Miles Morales from Into the Spider-Verse and now Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, we need to think of him as being from his own reality. In fact, the Miles we see here in the animated films is kind of alternate reality Miles. The original Miles Morales, however, hails from the Earth 1610 in the comics. So what I wonder is it possible that we might see this other version of Miles from Earth 1610, or would we consider his home reality to be as close to 1610 as we're ever going to see here? I think it would be cool to visit the Ultimate Universe, which in general is known for being a little bit more gritty, a little more edgy in comparison to the main comic book continuity of Earth 616. And I don't know about you, but the home reality of Miles from Into the Spider-Verse didn't really give me those feels. It didn't feel super edgy. So I think it's possible Earth 1610 is still out there when it comes to the animated Spider-Verse multiverse. And maybe we'll get to see it in Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. Who knows? Number 9. CANCERVERSE. Earth 10011 is one of the darkest realities and timelines out there. It imagines a version of the Marvel reality where Captain Marvel, the original Marvel, made a deal with the many angled ones to cheat death. In destroying death, the universe was forever changed. But instead of it becoming a paradise like you might imagine it would be without death, it became a monstrous world as the balance in the universe was basically completely disrupted. In the end, the defeat and removal of death allowed the many angled ones, sort of H.P. Lovecraft, elder god-like beings, to break through into that universe, turning the heroes and villains of that reality into their loyal servants. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, if you want to talk more alternate realities, you know I love doing that, be sure to let us know by smashing that like button. Like. Thumbs. Number 8. LOOMWORLD. LOOMWORLD is the home base of the Inheritors, one of the alternate Spider-Folks, also known as Spider Totem's greatest enemies. The Inheritors are a coven of energy vampires who feed on totemic life energy force, which exists in all Spider-Men, women, and folks across the multiverse. LOOMWORLD exists in the reality of Earth 001, so if we went to LOOMWORLD, we'd be headed to this alternate universe. While the Inheritors have not yet made an appearance in the Spider-Verse animated franchise, they are generally considered the main antagonists of both Spider-Verse based stories in the comics, one also named Spider-Verse and the other referred to as Spider-Geddon. Number 7. Warp World. Warp World doesn't actually have a designated reality number. Instead, it's just simply known as Warp World. It exists within a pocket universe, and is a world that came to be when Gamora folded the Marvel Universe, creating new lives by combining the souls of all those who already inhabit the main universe. Now, I love Warp World for this reason. It's got some pretty imaginative characters with cool designs who are all combinations of your favorite Marvel heroes and combinations of your favorite Marvel villains. Reality would later be set right, but Warp World still exists in a pocket dimension within the Soul Gem, with it being copied and saved first before the souls of one of those copies were returned to their normal state. It still exists within the Soul Gem, I believe, though it may have changed somewhat since we last saw it. I think there's now like multiple universes in the Soul Gem. So like Warp World I think has become its own like multiverse. Number 6. Earth Z. There are a few alternate realities that have been referred to as Earth Z in the Marvel Universe, but for this point we are looking at the alternate Earth of Reality 2149. This is generally considered to be the main Marvel zombieverse that we first got a glimpse into during the Ultimate Fantastic Four series, which itself existed mainly in the alternate universe of Earth 1610. On Earth 2149, the Earth was overrun with zombies who took over the planet and pretty much eradicated all life. Following that, the zombie Galacti, zombies who had gained the power cosmic after devouring Galactus and thereby defeating him, traveled throughout the universe devouring life on worlds until they were finally satiated of their hunger. One member of the zombie Galacti team just happens to be Spider-Man, by the way, the zombified Peter Parker of Earth 2149. Number 5. Earth 928. I mean, we can't have Spider-Man 2099 here and not go to the reality of Earth 2099. Earth 928 is widely considered to be the main alternate future of the 2099 reality. There's a few other alternate versions of that future, by the way. This alternate reality, though, is like a futuristic cyberpunk sort of version of the Marvel Universe. Here, the US is mainly run by mega corporations. In fact, I think the whole world is pretty much run by mega corporations at this point, after a war between mutants and humans, where humans came out victorious eventually, only created a wider gap between the poor and the rich. Now it is the rich who pretty much call the shots, with the poor being led by mega corporations like Alchemax, the corporation where Miguel O'Hara, aka Spider-Man 2099, used to work and also got his powers. Number 4. Earth 199999. Yeah, 199999. Wouldn't it be cool to see the MCU make an appearance in Across the Spider-Verse Part 1? I personally think so. Would it be animated or would it be live action though is the question. There is also the potential, if the Across the Spider-Verse team was able to strike a deal with Disney, that we could even glimpse into alternate worlds within the MCU itself, in the MCU multiverse, as we also just had season 1 of What If that wrapped, so there's all those worlds to play in as well. That would be awesome. Imagine if this is how we got a live action Miles, by the way, like when Miles falls through to the Earth of 199999, instead of changing animation styles, he becomes live action. Also, how cool would it be to see Tom Holland's Spider-Man make some kind of appearance here, animated or live action, in Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. Number 3. Earth 51914. You know I want to see the reality of the Hostess snack ads. It's one of my favorites. Here all the heroes fight crime with Hostess snacks, and sometimes hunger ends up being the greatest threat. Golden Sponge Cake Spider-Man is sadly no more in the comics, as he was one of the alternates taken out by Morlun. I guess he couldn't satiate Morlun's hunger with Hostess snacks. Morlun only wanted to feast on that sweet spider totem life energy. But that of course it doesn't mean that Golden Sponge Cake Spider-Man in the animated multiverse couldn't be alive and well. The Hostess snack ads are a riot, and I'd love to see a throwback to them. And hey, maybe the Spider-Verse could even make some nice product placement money while also giving us an entertaining look at this fun and very ridiculous universe. Number 2. Earth 982. Not to be confused with Earth 928, the 2099 reality, Earth 982 is the reality of the MC2 line. In this world, we get to imagine what things would be like were the heroes of old actually able to retire, or at least wind things down while their kids and new younger heroes took over. So instead of the Avengers still being made up of, many of those mainstays, you kind of get a whole new team here. The centerpiece of this reality and the main proponent was Spider-Girl, now known as Spider-Woman, the daughter of Peter Parker. Her name is May Mayday Parker. She was born to Peter and MJ after they settled down and finally started a family together. Mei also has a little brother too, Benji, and eventually gets a clone who becomes like a sister to her and publicly claims to basically be Mei's cousin, April. Number 1. Earth 51778. This is the home world of Japanese Spider-Man, who has a pretty different story in comparison to Peter Parker, and is also, I think, more badass when it comes to just all the gadgets and the tech and mechs he has access to, including Leopard Dawn. Here, Takuya Yamashiro is a young motocross racer who becomes Spider-Man after being gifted the Spider Bracelet and a spaceship known as Marveler by the alien Garia. Seriously, if you haven't seen the live-action series that is set in this universe, you need to watch at least an episode, if not more. It's such a fun time, and Japanese Spider-Man has also appeared in the comics as well. His universe has appeared in Spiderverse, Spider-Geddon, and Vault of Spiders, where we got actually a short story featuring Takuya Yamashiro.